cult members, and welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome to Space Force! Pew, 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 pew.
There really wasn't any pew pew.
They tried to pew pew.
They did. They did, but they tore it apart and made something else out of it instead.
Okay. It's going to be really hard to talk about the show without spoiling at least some of it. So,
Yeah.
But so
Go watch it first and then come back.
go watch it and stuff. But it's not like a super like there's a plot twist or something, or anything like kind of spoilery or whatever. And so this is a Netflix original from Steve Carell and the guy who did The Office, whose name is now Greg Daniels. Yeah. And the story behind the show was President Trump came out and said this was
6 months ago?
10 month ago, something like that.
Feels like a million years ago.
Yeah, there's been some poo that's happened since then. But he announced that they're going to start another branch of the military, and it's going to be called Space Force. And the idea is to defend American interest in space.
Right. Because space rocks.
And it's not too crazy when Reagan wanted to do in the 80s was space or Star Wars, which was essentially a laser in space to shoot the nukes down from Russia.
It was a bunch of lasers. They were going to use the satellites or launch some. I think maybe they launched some new satellites that shot lasers and created a net
around United States from
around the world.
Was it around the world? I thought it was just for the States, so that the Russians couldn't nuke us from wherever. So the general idea of having some kind of defense mechanism in space around the planet is not ludicrous or out of the blue, or it's not a new idea or anything like that. However, with the track record of President Trump, it came off very weird, and Steve Carell and Greg Daniels got very inspired of how this would actually work.
Right.
And with somebody like Trump, who was very speaking from the seat of his pants and wants to be instant gratification on things, how do you handle that in a giant government run space program?
Right. I mean, they barely...
Am I being good enough? Am I being nice enough here?
Yeah. They barely got to the moon during, Kennedy's... Actually, they didn't actually land on the moon during... because Kennedy was shot. Spoilers. But, that's from the late third, early fourth year of your first term to decide to do something like this. You're probably not going to see it fulfilled right during even
presidency. If you get a second,
right?
It's not easy. It took SpaceX 10 years to send Bob and Doug up a couple weeks ago. So it's not an easy thing,
right?
But this show. Now that we've told you the history of space travel and the world, we're now 4 minutes in, and we're going to talk about the show. When I got done watching this show, I was wasn't sure about it.
Yeah.
I wasn't very sure about it. I openly laughed several times.
Yes.
I openly cringed several times.
Because it's true.
And I will be honest about where my mindset was when we were watching this. It was right after the George Floyd stuff had started and happened, and we're still in the pandemic side, and we live in a state that opened up way too fast, and so my mental position was not very good. So I watched a comedy that was really close to home.
And, to be fair, it is not The Office. I am currently watching The Office, and it's not The Office. So I think that it does have funny parts.
Yes.
But it is they're being serious.
They are taking a ridiculous premise and taking it seriously. Within that, though, there are just open moments of, are you fucking kidding me? And even the characters, Steve Carell plays a 4-star general, and talk to yourselves.
Mark
Nard. And there's multiple times where he's just trying to do his job. And there's multiple times where he just has to go, like, really? And it comes across very funny because it is a ridiculous concept.
Right.
Yeah. And the conversation that is being had between him and John Malkovich's character, Dr. Adrian Mallory. Because it's the military, the way we fix it is a bomb. If that doesn't fix it, we do a bigger bomb.
Right.
And then the idea of the science side of trying to preserve everything as much as they can. They kind of make a joke about they have to, like 10 hours before a launch, they have to go out and rescue all these endangered squirrels that are in the
lizards.
Lizards.
Yeah.
And so
she keeps going out there, and then they cancel, and then she goes, and then they're doing it again, so she goes back out there,
which is hilarious. But that real conversation is had every day at NASA.
Yeah.
The military side compared to the scientist side.
Yeah. Well, and Malkovich's character is kind of like pointing out the ridiculousness of a lot of what they're doing.
Yeah.
But he is so like mentally ill-equipped to handle.
Right.
So Steve Carell's character is just, he's a 4-star general. We're just doing it. We're doing it.
I'm gonna make sure it gets done. However,
we're moving forward.
It needs to happen.
And John Malkovich's character is just like, what? And he drinks a lot.
Oh, that scene where he's, the scene where he's having the full on conversation with himself.
Yeah.
And it's so funny and it's refreshing to watch a show that is taking. A lot of times, shows take a ridiculous view of a serious subject, and to try to bring some levity or at least bring some eyeballs to it. This is kind of the opposite way around. It's a ridiculous concept that is being taken very seriously, and like I said, it was hitting really close to home for me. And so a lot of the stuff that was going on, although I found funny, they just didn't hit with me the way it needed to, I think, through the process. It wasn't until the last maybe episode and a half that I really like, oh, I'm starting to get what's going on here. And we have a concept, let's sit down and write it, to let's get it produced, let's get it distributed, filming it, the special effects, the little bit of special effects that they had to do and whatever, the editing and everything, and get it all done in less than a year.
Yeah.
And it's a really good quality looking show.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, space is sometimes can be a little difficult.
It can be very difficult. Yes.
CGI or whatever. I mean, you can obviously tell they are not really on the moon.
Right. Right.
It's not Ad Astra or The Martian or whatever.
Right.
They jump down on the moon and there's like this like a poof, and you're like, that doesn't really happen.
And
there's
they
no gravity.
kind of bounce when they move, but it's like, okay, it's obviously wire work, but
they end up taking like the custodian and the repair guy with them because they
electrician.
The electrician, they need people like tradespeople because they need to build this habitat and live on the moon for however long it was.
And they have to do it right now. They can't wait
Right.
6 months,
right.
2
you land,
years,
and your
10
first
years.
mission,
Yeah.
supposedly, is to assemble this habitat, and they need tradespeople, and they can't find any, so they co-opt the janitor lady and the electrician to go up and do it, and they're trying to beat the Russian or the Chinese,
yeah,
and there's a monkey, and there was a dog apparently at one point in time, but he's not there, just his tail's there now.
Everyone is a spaceman until they start talking about the monkey and the dog, and then it's the space dog and
the space dog and
the space monkey and
yes.
stuff, and there's a really funny, we said there were spoilers, but there's a really funny scene where the captain of the spaceship, I want to say shuttle, but that's not right, but the thing that's actually taking the rocket, the thing that's actually taking them to the is a black woman.
Yes.
And she's the first black woman, and so they take it very seriously about what she's going to say.
Right.
She's not only the first woman, she's also the first black person to step on the moon. Right. And so they take it very seriously about, like, her asking other people, what do you think I should say and whatever. Yeah. And then she flubs the line. But then it becomes...
maybe?
Maybe... But then it becomes
funny.
Endearing.
Yeah.
So again, ridiculous, weird. How does this actually happen? And then, but it actually becomes like something like like everybody embraces it, including her and stuff. And
it kind of points out the fact that there's no money to do this. Let's start a fourth branch and go protect space. With what money? NASA was defunded a while ago. I mean, I think NASA gets like $1 million a year or something.
They reinstated them, like I was reading something. They just re-upped them, reactivated them,
refunded them.
I don't know what the wording is.
Who knows with what money?
I don't know.
Oh
yeah, because Pence is on the board for NASA, which is very odd that. Very Christian-based person is the head of a science division and stuff, and so I'm trying to be good, guys. I'm trying. There has been a little bit of criticism. I had read that there's a very overtly racist view of, is it OAC? Is that our initials?
Yes.
There is a character who is very woman of color.
They call her the what do they call? It's not obnoxious. The loud young congresswoman.
Yeah.
And then she shows up. She is Hispanic and has a 3 name,
and it's obviously they're not taking shots at OAC herself.
Right.
What they're taking shots at is everybody's response to her.
Yeah. That
she was coming in and asking all of these questions. Why do you need to spend $10,000 to get an orange to space?
Right.
Like why is that transportation cost $10,000? It's a viable question.
Yeah.
It's just the way she had been doing it had been very confrontational, and so they leaned into that.
Yeah.
But they also allowed that character to do what a lot of people don't do in the Senate and the House and in appropriation meetings and budget meetings, is to hear what they actually are saying of why they're spending this money on certain things.
Right, and the answer... although it seems ridiculous to spend $10,000 to send an orange to space, the answer made complete sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a weird way.
In a weird roundabout way, which was what Nard's ability as the commander of Space Force was actually, that was his ability, was to be able to not convince people, but like make it legitimize it. Was his ability to do with everybody. We're just going to talk about the show. We're not really reviewing it. We're just talking about scenes. which is fine because I think the show, A, is really good. B, was put together really well, shot really well. There's some honest like father-daughter bonding moments, and some there's some true like heart-to-heart, not judging a book by its cover. Also, there's also that coming of age kind of story of
with the daughter
and stuff, and
dealing with a daughter who's kind of grown up in the military and having to move around. I need to know what Lisa Kudrow's character did.
Yes. She yes.
We won't spoil it.
We won't spoil it, but
once you watch it, you will also need to know.
Yes, and there's also one other thing I'd like to need to know, and that is, when is season 2 coming?
Right.
Because they leave it on what could be a monumental cliffhanger.
Right.
And if you're going to tell the story the way they did, which I am appreciating after the fact, but that's okay, we got there. If you're going to tell the story that way, you can't leave it there.
Right. And it's, again, it's, the two guys from The American Office, they were writing a kind of series-based show, right? I mean, it's going somewhere. It's not just like each episode is its own individual little thing or whatever. There is a story that's being told, and they didn't finish that by any means
with 10 episodes.
Right.
Like they have a story, they have a bigger story that they're trying to tell here.
Right. And Netflix is usually pretty good about giving them at least one more season.
Yes. And I'm thinking they might be sitting on it a little bit. Like they might have already okayed season 2, but they might be sitting on it a little bit just to let things as currently they're going, since they dealt with so much of the current events during the show.
Yeah.
To kind of maybe just let it sit for a second and work what the current events work their way through, and then they can work. They
could bring the election into the next one,
yes,
which could potentially change what happens for them.
Yes, that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah.
And the idea of the pandemic, that pretty much puts a halt on everything.
Yeah.
Except for Bob
nobody's
and Doug.
Doing anything right now.
Bob and Doug left. They were like, "Screw you guys, we're out of here." But yeah, I like the general idea. And one last thing that I read today about Space Force is it looks like possibly there's still legal battles to happen and stuff like that, but Netflix might actually own the rights to the name Space Force before the U.S. government does. So that is our thoughts of Space Force, original series starring Steve Carell and John Malkovich on Netflix. What did you guys think of it? Let us know in the comments down below. Let us know what you thought of our just sitting here and shooting the shit about talking about it pretty much. In the comments, be nice. That's a requirement. Like this video or the podcast. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications and follow us on all the social media stuff. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, Anchor, Bucket List. I don't know. We're on a bunch of random
wherever
podcasts.
You get your podcasts.
Yes, except for iTunes.
Except for iTunes.
I'm not paying to put my stuff on iTunes. Unless you want to sponsor us, then it's a different story. Let us know what you thought. All right. And until next time, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.